Désolé, désolé.
Hello. Pleased to meet you, Andy Nossoff. Good to see you.
Désolé,
Hello,
désolé.
Your Holiness.
Désolé, désolé.
Pleasure to meet you. Very nice to meet you.
Désolé. Désolé, désolé, good to see you. Órale.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the President of the University of Washington, Mark Emmert.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the University of Washington. We are absolutely delighted, Your Holiness, to host you at the University of Washington, to have you be part of our city and our community for these 5 extraordinary days is something that will be a memorable experience for all of us, and we hope has the impact that we are all praying for. The University of Washington is delighted to host this first of these events to discuss the scientific underpinnings of compassion. It's fitting that a university be that site, and we are delighted that we have so many wonderful panelists and specialists here, including one of our very own. We are also pleased and proud of the Seeds of Compassion organization, co-founded by Dan Kranzler and the Kirlan Foundation, for making all of this possible. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Dan Kranzler. Dan.
Good morning. It is with great joy, on behalf of the organizing committee and all of us, to welcome you to this great gathering of Seeds of Compassion. I would like to especially welcome our most honored guest, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Your Holiness, we are most grateful, honored and humbled that you would come this far around the world, especially in such times of struggle for the Tibetan people here in China, to speak with us about compassion for children, for all children. We hold in our heart that gratitude, knowing that you hold the soul and the pain of the Tibetan people. And we join as one, all of our hearts together, in deep gratitude for your care and your example of true, selfless compassion. And may I just say, personally, the world knows the truth. The world knows.
Thank you.
Seeds of Compassion came about, Your Holiness, because of one of your own, Lama Tenzin Dondan, who's the visionary behind this. Lama Tenzin brought us a vision to learn and celebrate your wisdom of compassion for all of our children. He shared his friendship and his teachings, and he brought us all together. We shared this vision with some of our friends, who shared that vision with some of their friends. And there was a unanimous and instant reaction. Yes, this is the right thing to do. This is the right time, now, together. All of us have taken this vision and through the hard work of many, many people here, have brought together not just an opportunity to talk, but an opportunity to reflect, to look inside, to change in ourselves, and in doing so, change our society, the focus and the prospect for our world and our children and peace. So now, we begin the dialogue. We have a conversation over the next 5 days, and you get to join that vision. Over 150,000 people will share in this dialogue over the next 5 days, and it is broadcast to millions by the television and the internet at seedsofcompassion.org in 28 languages. Thank you all for joining this vision. Thank you for joining this practice. So we begin this dialogue now using our brain, talking about the brain. But I ask all of you to listen with your heart. To set the overview, I'm going to invite up a very special person, and after the overview, Your Holiness will ask you, if you would, to give a brief set of comments before we start the dialogue with our moderator. To set this up, I am very proud to introduce the Executive Director of the Kirilin Foundation, Ron Rabin. Ron?
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for your vision and your passion for the children of the world. What a gift it is to be here this morning with the magic and beauty that's brought us all together to take these next steps in the celebration of children and the launch of Seeds of Compassion. Kindness and compassion in the world begins with children and all who touch their lives. And we know that when children form strong foundations socially, emotionally, cognitively, and culturally, they will develop into healthy, happy, successful, and compassionate young adults, creative and engaged members of society. All of us, parents, caregivers, teachers, community members, we know this to be true in our hearts, and we know and believe that over these next 5 days, our hearts will continue to open even further and strengthen our commitment to take action and practice compassion toward ourselves and for every child everywhere. Throughout Seeds of Compassion, we will explore the relationships, programs, and tools that nurture and empower our children, our families, and our communities. And we are so blessed this morning to have the presence, knowledge, and wisdom of some of the top scientists in the world in the fields of neuroscience and early childhood development. Their great work gives us a foundation to support the changes that each and every one of us can make to help in the development and well-being of every child. Your Holiness, would you like to share a few opening remarks with us?
Indeed, I'm very, very happy to participate in this some kind of seminar about our good being. Good being means, I think, life become meaningful, purposeful. For that, I think one important part is healthy body, healthy mind. So I think obviously about health care, I think many people do it, right? And also for that, millions of dollars is spent. But health of our mind, I think, of course, those people who really go something abnormal, right? People usually care, take care, right? Pay attention. But a person who has a lot of anger, a lot of, hatred, and a lot of, jealousy, this usually we consider something normal. And therefore, we usually should not pay much attention about valuable thing about compassion, warm-heartedness. Now, fortunately, it seems now more and more people, particularly from the sort of scientific fields, particularly medical science, now showing interest. Our emotion is so important for our well-being. And then many problems in this society, social level, right, or family level, many problems, essentially, ultimately related with warm-heartedness. So since, I think, many years, already some of these long time friend or our group, many scientists, really provide me something very useful ideas or understanding. So once more here, opportunity, our experience, share with more people, particularly children and people who have a direct link with our younger generation. So I really feel some kind of really enthusiasm. So I want to express my thanks to organizer. Thank you very much. Thank you. And then, this 21st century, in the field of material development and also field of scientific research, I think each century really now more advanced. But the beginning of this century, trouble, man-made problem, and also counter or method to solve that problem. Also, another I think, man's creation using force, violence. So anyway, beginning of this century, not a very healthy one. So in any way, my generation, no need much worry because we belong to the century. Now ready to say goodbye. But these younger people, now you have the serious you have to face the serious consequences rest of this century. So at the beginning, I think really worthwhile to think more, to make better preparation. Firstly, how to avoid these man-made problems, mainly creation of negative emotion. And due to, I think, the lack of holistic view, so out of ignorance and combination of negative emotion creates this problem. Because no one wants a problem, but problem happen due to our own wrong views and wrong action. Now it is very, very important to develop right view and right sort of vision. That's, I think, important. So suppose next few days we are discussing about these things. So mainly from those scientists, and in case some little contribution from my side, of course, I always available, but my knowledge limited. So I myself say feel now this is something learning session, learning opportunity. So perhaps I think audience also may learn some new things, and then not necessarily to believe what we are talking here, but investment, because investigation, experiment, that's very important. Then once through your own investigation and experiment, you feel some conviction, then implement seriously, sincerely. Thank you.
Your Holiness, you've gotten right to the point, as always. Really, our focus here this morning is the question of how can we help children grow up with a healthy mind and a healthy heart, because a more compassionate childhood and children with more compassion means a more peaceful world. And the scientific question is, how can we best plant those seeds of compassion? As you noted, we have a very distinguished scientific panel: Andrew Meltzoff, Richard Davidson, Lisa Lieberman, and Daniel Siegel, and you'll hear more from each of them. But before we get into the discussion, we prepared a special film for today where they've gone to the laboratories of each of these scientists to give us a concise idea of what the key points are. So let's look at that film first.
We are living in an incredibly exciting time for studying the development of young children. Brains and skills are built over time. A good part of brain development has just barely begun at the time a baby is born. And that development, that process of building the architecture of the brain, is heavily influenced by the experiences that children have early in their lives, particularly in terms of the relationships that they have with the important people around them. That begins with their parents, other family members, but also includes neighbors, relatives, friends, people who work in early child care centers, who work in preschool programs. Children literally grow up in an environment of relationships, and those in relationships and the nature of their interactions truly and literally shape the circuitry of their brains. So we used to separate children's intellectual development from their social and emotional development. And now we know that the foundations of problem solving, the foundations of kindness and compassion, the foundations of the ability to make friendships and long-lasting relationships, to engage peacefully with other people, all of that is built into the circuitry of the brain. Early child development is really the foundation, not only of individual lives, but it's the foundation of community development. It's the foundation of economic productivity. It's the foundation of responsible citizenship. All of the things that make for a cohesive, productive, sustainable society have their roots in the abilities that children develop very early in their lives. Children are all born eager to learn, ready to take charge of their lives, ready to be in command of their own feelings, ready to reach out and relate to other people and to learn together with them. So you can't work with children and not be hopeful.
We're finding out that social emotional interaction is critical to almost everything that human beings do. So when you think about social interaction and the components of empathy and compassion that are tucked into social interaction, you can imagine that in the environment in which children are placed, that the ability to learn, to absorb from the environment, requires this sort of comfort state that the child might be in. Lack of fear, lack of anxiety, readiness and curiosity about information that could be there for you to acquire. But our newest experiments with babies, very young babies at about 9 months of age, demonstrates that while babies can learn in interaction with other human beings, they don't learn if the same information is presented from a television or an audio tape. Learning is enhanced when the baby's excited, attuned, attentive.
We have found that the heart plays a key role in our emotional experience, and especially during early child development, the heart is involved in creating the patterns that become familiar to level the neural architecture that really are involved in long-term emotional experience in a child's life. We're able to now measure an energetic connection between mother and baby, and this energetic connection is important in emotional bonding and the future development of the baby's emotional responsiveness. A lot of people don't realize that the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And these messages the heart sends to the brain are very important in determining emotional experience. We found that the philosophers, poets, and spiritual leaders have been right all along. The heart is more than a metaphor for love and compassion. The heart truly is involved in our experience of emotion. And by learning heart-based techniques, we can learn to increase our intuition and much better ability to manage our emotions.
So we know that how a child feels affects how a child learns, and that these two things of emotions and thinking really go hand in hand. To be an effective learner, we know that a child needs to be able to do many things to control their own mind. For example, they need to be able to control how and what they pay attention to. They need to be able to control their emotions. They also need to be able to develop a strong ability to remember information. And the good news is that there are many things that caregivers and parents can do to help children develop these skills. One of the things that I've had a lot of fun doing with my own children is to think of these skills as really tools that they have in their own personal toolbox as they go about their day. So my son and I talk about how his attention, or his ability to focus attention, is sort of like a flashlight, and he can shine it wherever he needs to really pay attention. There are also times when he knows that he can just shut off the flashlight and have his mind do whatever he wants. So those are ways in which he can start thinking about his own capacity to pay attention or to feel emotions as something that he actually has control over and can guide and use in the most effective way that he needs to in the moment.
We as parents and caregivers can create an enriched environment for children, for people at any age. The magic trees of the mind are the growth of the dendrites coming from the nerve cell as one is learning and playing. Without such learning and playing, these decrease in their dimension, and we lose function. And with enriched experiences, we grow the branches on the nerve cells. And these can grow in optimum conditions with a good diet, with exercise, with challenge, with newness, and never forget, much love.
One of the challenges of early childhood is children learning about their feelings and about how to manage them. And they develop this understanding in the context of relationships of security and trust with parents and caregivers who matter to children. In these relationships, parents and other caregivers function as emotion coaches, helping children to understand their feelings, to understand the behaviors that are associated with those feelings, to learn about themselves. And in the context of their developing skills for emotion and emotion management, children develop problem-solving abilities, This forms a basis for the relationships that they're able to form with others in the years that follow, and their abilities to create happy and healthy lives for themselves. In the research in our lab, we are finding that how parents coach their children in their emotions and emotion management has a lot to do with how parents understand their own feelings. The parents' own beliefs about their emotions, about their reliability, about their importance, about the degree to which you can trust them, has a lot to do with what parents tell children about children's emotional lives and about the best ways of listening to and also managing the deep feelings within them. The early years are important not just for how children's own emotional lives are unfolded through the care and compassion provided to them by others, but also how they learn to show compassion toward other people, in how others' feelings are described to them, in how they learn to reach out to people around them through the healthy examples of those who care for them, and in how they learn to feel others' experiences in their own hearts.
Your Holiness, I'd like to introduce you to our first two panelists. First one is Andrew Meltzoff, who's local. He's here at the University of Washington. I first encountered Andrew, at least Andrew's face, when I was a reporter for the New York Times, and there was an article in the prestigious journal Science that showed him and a baby, and he was doing things like, and the baby would do that too. And it's the same face. First time I met Andy, the hair is a little different. But Andy is a pioneer in studying the importance of the first 3 years of life for laying the basic foundations, especially in the brain, for the rest of life. Here he's co-director of the Institute for Learning and Brain Sciences, where his research focuses on how children develop the ability to think effectively and get along with others. And our second panelist, I really don't need to introduce you to. It's Richard Davidson, who you know well. But I don't know if you know that Richie and I first met when we were graduate students together many years ago. And this was when I first realized that I should keep my eye on Richie. We both worked with the same dissertation advisor. And when I had to do my research for my PhD, it took me 2 years. Richie did his in 6 weeks, beginning to end. I thought, this guy is going to go somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, my contribution to the field was to leave and become a journalist, but luckily, luckily Richie has stayed, and he, as you know, is one of the founders of many, many waves of new discovery, such as the role of the brain and emotion, and some of the posts he holds at the University of Wisconsin are director of the Keck Laboratory for Brain Imaging and Behavior. He's head of the Lab for Affective Neuroscience. And the one I like the most, he's the founder of the Center for Creating a Healthy Mind. Let me start the discussion by first asking Andy, can you remember a time in your work that was an eye-opener?
Well, I can remember a special time. You know, I, like many other people here, are very interested in the origins of human nature, how we begin life and turn into the adults that we turn into. You know, a newborn baby is not very much like a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old can walk and talk, sometimes tells little lies if they have cookie crumbs on their if they have cookie crumbs on their face and you ask, did you eat the cookie? They may say, no, I didn't have any of the cookie. But most importantly, they already have a sense of right and wrong and a budding sense of empathy or compassion for other people, even by the age of 3. If you're hurt, a 3-year-old will attempt to comfort you. And that's a very, very profound thing. So as parents and caretakers, we're all deeply interested in how babies learn so quickly. They seem to be like sponges and absorb the culture around them. I'm a developmental
That's much less than 40 minutes.
I'm a developmental psychologist and have been studying child development for 25 years. And one of the things we did was set up a laboratory in a newborn nursery in a hospital not very far from here in Seattle. And we were able to do some studies to test how socially connected newborns were, even to begin with. And so, as Dan mentioned, in some of our studies, we did simple little gestures in front of the babies, gestures that they could do, like opening and closing their mouth or putting out their tongue. And we videotaped the baby. By examining the videotapes, we discovered that babies, even newborns, even a few minutes old, when they watched us do a gesture, would imitate back. They would put out their tongue if we put out our tongue. They would act reciprocally to us, even at birth. And this totally changed my mind about the origins of human nature, what people are like at birth. All of the predominant theories at that time said that we're born alone, social isolates, not connected to other people. But this research showed that babies could connect to others. They even knew something about the similarity between themselves and others. Babies were not alone and that we can communicate with them. But something else happened that was interesting. About 5 years after that, my wife and I had our own baby, and as it turns out, we had this baby in the same hospital where I had been doing the tests. And I knew the hospital nursery like the back of my hand. I knew it very well. I knew all the nurses and all the bassinets in the nursery. But nothing prepared me for the emotion I felt when I watched my own baby being born. And nothing as my role as a scientist prepared me for holding my own baby in my arms and having her look deeply into my eyes. And at that moment, she transformed me. She changed me from being a mere scientist to a parent that would take care of her forever. And when I brought her home, I remember concretely her crying in the other room and my feeling hit in the stomach with her cry and feeling compelled to action, to some sort of compassion or empathy for her, where I needed to go to the other room to comfort her. Literally, I felt her pain within me. And so I began to wonder if there was some way that all parents who feel this special bond with their own child could learn to harness that and feel the same thing for other children as they feel for their own. And I wanted to take this opportunity during these magical 5 days and this moment on the stage to hope that you might be able to share something from your own tradition and your own practices about how all parents could learn to treat other children as they treat their own children.
Are you asking the question? So, Your Holiness, before we hear from Richie, we've specially prepared, again, a film about Richie and Andy's research to show some of the key points. Could we watch that now?
What's fascinating about early learning is that children learn more in their first 5 years of life than we human beings will ever learn in any other 5 years of our life. Babies are literally born learning and connected to us, desperately wanting to be like us, starting just from the moment of birth. One of the things that we're finding out, and it is fascinating about the brain, is the old view was that babies came with their brain pre-wired, ready to turn on a switch and they would just develop. And the new findings show us that the brain is very plastic and changes with the culture, what the family does, the environmental input. So we literally construct the brain of our child when we interact with that child every day in the bassinet, in the crib, across the dinner table. You know, there's a lot of toys being manufactured today, a lot of people trying to figure out what new gadgets, what new objects we can give children. And what we're finding is that the baby's favorite plaything are we human beings. They need social interaction. Social interaction is what makes their brains grow. It's important for learning language. And the baby's favorite playthings is the mother, father, the caretakers, the people around them. Think of a child in a high chair who has a spoon in front of the child who's dropping the spoon off the table. The parent will take the spoon, put it back on the high chair, and the child will do it again. Parent will put it back, the child will do it again. The child is actually trying to master and understand something about gravity. Where does the spoon go when I drop it? So when the child has a problem that they've set for themselves, they have this sort of innate sense of curiosity and intrinsic mastery motivation where they seek to understand the solutions to issues by themselves. One of the implications of that is we need preschool systems, daycares, schooling, even K through 12, that captures this innate and intrinsic sense of curiosity that humans bring to the world when they set the problems. They work on it for a long time. Magic can and will happen when we bring together the researchers, the practitioners, the policymakers, and the business people in philanthropy, all focused on one thing. And the thing they're beginning to be focused on is the health and well-being of our children.
The brain is really the organ that underlies change. The focus on early years is particularly important because we know that the brain is very, what scientists call plastic during this period. And plastic means that it is responsive to experience, it's malleable, it's transformable. One of the most powerful, and maybe even the most powerful influence on the shaping of the mind and the brain are relationships, because humans are really tuned in to social interaction, and a huge part of the real estate of the brain is dedicated to processing information about social interaction. And wittingly or unwittingly, the nature of our interpersonal relationships literally shape the developing brain. And if we can do our best to make those relationships harmonious and loving, we can shape the brain and develop circuits that promote more virtuous qualities. If we are exposed to relationships that are toxic and negative, then they are likely going to reinforce negative circuits in the brain that promote negative emotion. The most important insight from our work is this idea of plasticity, that the brain can change. But the accompanying insight is that we can actually take responsibility for that change. We can change our brains for the better. If we take seriously the idea that the brain is the organ of change, we can, through intentional practice, through training, we can change our brains in ways to promote virtuous qualities like compassion and kindness and happiness. This is no different than physical exercise. I think if parents are just more attentive to the fact that how they behave actually shapes their children's brains, then they will take more responsibility for behaving in a more beneficial way.
Chi, can you tell us about a moment in your research that had particular personal meaning for you?
Certainly. Your Holiness, as you know, I'm a neuroscientist, and we have wonderful tools today for probing inside the brain. We can think of these as the microscope for the mind. To peer inside the brain is still, to me, even though I do it virtually every day, it's an extraordinary privilege and it's very humbling to be able to speak to a person and then 5 minutes later actually be able to look inside that person's brain. And it's really an awesome experience. And the very first time that we had one of our long-term meditation practitioners in the laboratory, and we were observing his brain activity during a neutral period, and then during the intentional cultivation of compassion. What was remarkable is just to observe with our own naked eye the dramatic change that occurred at the transition when this practitioner was generating compassion. And at first I thought that there was something wrong with the equipment. At first I thought it was an artifact. And it took, as I think you know, we tested many practitioners to convince ourselves as scientists that this was actually something real. And so these tools have enabled us to see change. In other research, we have looked over the course of 8 weeks among individuals who've never meditated before, and we've observed changes from before to after 8 weeks of practice. In other work, we've looked a little longer at 3 months, and again, we see even more profound changes. Some of the new methods are enabling us to actually see the connections in the brain and how they form over the course of human development. And one of the very important times in development, and it's a time when things can flourish, and it's also a time when kids can go off track, where they can make a wrong turn, and that's during adolescence. So we have seen dramatic changes in adolescence. And for me, the capacity of the brain to change offers a very important message of hope, because we can see that things can really change and we can improve the state of the brain and the state of the mind. When I had my own children, I have 2 kids, and one of them had a bit of a tumultuous adolescence, difficult. And the research that I've done showing me that the brain can change gave me a sense of hope. And he's now 20 years old, wonderful, wonderful child, great to be with, and so we made it through. And so I'd like to just end this very brief story with a question for you, Your Holiness, that this raises, and that is, what is the relationship between hope, which the capacity to change signifies, or it gives us some sense of hope, what is the relationship between hope and compassion?
I think hope means something something good, something for better. But those meaning some change to the hopes.
So His Holiness is wondering what would be the English word for the opposite.
Pardon?
Anticipating, hoping for, can you say hoping for something bad?
Some kind of expectation, something bad.
Hopelessness.
Well, in this case, it's
hopeless.
The opposite is hopeless, but in this case, it's clearly hoping for something good, for a positive outcome.
So therefore, hope means something for good, expectation of something good. So maybe what kind of good? What's the day? Next day, Sunday, hope for a sunny day. I don't think much connection with compassion. Then hope for happier day. Then certainly compassion, very much related. I think the other day I mentioned, you see, that nobody from as soon as you wake up, you see, sort of what's today?
In the morning, no?
In the morning, hoping or wish today I want to have a good fight with my neighbor. I don't think no one. Today, hopefully, or I wish this is some kind of lot of anger. I think nobody feeling that. Instead, either from early morning, or some wish or some desire, or today, some my friend come, or and anyway, some good things which gives you inner satisfaction. So therefore, that kind of hope and very much related with compassion, I feel. And then basically, calm mind is, I think, one important element. So compassion create calm mind. I think calm mind, I don't know. Of course, my English vocabulary, of course, very limited, and I may not have the full sort of understanding about the word. But some kind of calm mind, I think that's the key element. So now how to bring calm mind? Now compassion, I think, involved. And intelligence, if we use properly, intelligence also, you see, bring calm mind. How? Intelligence helpful to approach realistic. Realistic approach brings calm mind. Unrealistic approach, failure. Failure brings much uncomfortable, anger, frustrations, anxiety, like that. So that's my view. Then while you mentioned learning, so pugu anda ngamra chebe khudu learn chadi, kabu chebe khudu learn chadi kya kadwa. Puta shujuben pa, puk shujugab.
His Holiness just wants to ask you, as scientist, watching the video, the emphasis was placed on how children learn from a very early stage. So His Holiness is wondering whether there has been any research done on...
I think indication, you mentioned the more happier mood, then children learn quickly. So I just doubt some fear, some kind of tense. That also may help to learn quick or not.
Some fear.
Fear.
Well, you know, babies have a very natural sense of curiosity.
Yes.
If you pose some problem to them, some puzzle, babies, even as young as 2 years old, are drawn to want to solve the problem. They have almost an innate sense of curiosity, an inborn sense of curiosity. As adults, sometimes we solve problems to get pay raises or Nobel Prizes or to get promoted, but children are much more pure. They solve problems because they have a sense of curiosity. It makes them happy when they get the solution to it. I think you're right that one of the things that promotes them to want to solve problems is a little bit of tension, a little bit of something is not quite right and they want to resolve it. So I don't know if I would say that fear makes them solve problems or to work things out or to learn, but some sense of tension, some problem that's posed, something that's unresolved, definitely is a very, very powerful motivator for learning, even in the smallest children.
Not very clear. My question is, my question is, it is obviously, I think everybody's sort of experience when we are learning from our teacher, the kind teacher, the very compassionate teacher, respected teacher, and then you see our enthusiasm to learn, very strong. Then I think similarly, they at the very, very young age, early age, the children, happy mood, as you mentioned, you said trust, very close feeling. Then the capacity to learn, I think, full. So that's understandable. Now, quick learn, right? Quick learn.
More receptive.
So here I just felt fear, some danger, fear. There are, you see, the obvious sort of experience. You see, learn more quicker. So that's why you see, sometimes you see teacher deliberately showing a little bit. Now, for example, you see my own sort of case. When I very young, carry study, my teacher aside to keep
on side.
Keep next him one whip. That whip, yellow whip. So the person supposed to use that red. Whip is holy person. So whip also should be holy. yellow whip. But I think pain, I think same, no matter. Not much difference is holy pain. I don't think. So that also, you see, it works, isn't it? A little fear. You see, the more enthusiasm to learn. But I think actually, only that part, I'm just wondering. But basically, of course, the willingness to learn, happy mood is much healthier, much stronger. Of course, no question. But as far as brain speed is way. What the Shanang one, Laviatida, Kabung and Lavani with the Cabar.
His Holiness is wondering, as a researcher, whether you would have any opinion on this point about the speed in which, so purely from the scientific perspective, the speed with which a child can learn in a situation where there's an element of fear, or where there is no element of fear. In general, admitting the fact that it is better to learn in a much more safer environment.
So from a scientific perspective, particularly neuroscience, the answer is it depends on what the child is learning. If the child is learning about something dangerous, so for example, if a parent wants to teach a child not to walk out in the middle of the street or else he may get hit by a car. It's actually good to have a little bit of fear. Fear helps that kind of learning. So it depends on what the kind of learning is.
No.
Your Holiness, there's also a general relationship between the ability to learn and emotions. And generally, if you're very bored, if you're not very interested, that's when the fact that the whip is there might be good.
Boring?
Because it makes you more interested, more motivated. However, there's an optimal point where motivation, generally in a good frame of mind, makes the brain best able to take in new information and to learn. Past that, if you pressure children too much, you give them too many deadlines, you're very angry with them, you overwhelm the brain's capacity. So the person who picks up that whip needs to know just how lightly or how hard to do it, because if you use that as a strategy completely, you actually destroy the ability to learn.
Dirisha. Yes, demoralize, no longer any enthusiasm, and only wish is escape.
Exactly.
That's it. Hajirisha, did Mangana? The Mangas, the Kulunga Betan Shabina, the nursing surgeon, Chimina, that did it.
This is very true also. If you use it excessively, and also if you use it with the wrong state of mind, like negative emotions, then of course.